George's office, or more accurately the room he shared with 3 other officers, plus anyone else who wanted to sit in air conditioning out of direct line of sight of the desk sergeant, was in the back corner of the ground floor. Detectives were located on the first floor, and senior officers and their secretaries were on the higher floors. Hierarchy was literal in this police station. He wasn't sure for how long. Word was the building was going to be demolished soon. It was falling apart. Water damage, someone had said. It wasn't new. The cells in the basement were no longer habitable, even by criminals. No one knew whether 100 or so officers stationed there would be relocated if they closed down the station. There certainly weren't any other police stations in Vila that could host them. Perhaps either the Chinese or Australian governments would build them something nice and new. George nodded to the young officer sitting at the front desk as he walked past, looking at the pained expression he was wearing. Whatever tale of woe was being relayed to him had been going on for some time and likely not to finish soon. "All Simwanam?" George asked the young constable how he was as he hurried past. All George received were rolled eyes, but it was enough. Ni Vanuatu have a reputation for being the happiest people in the world. And while this was often true, and they did seem to have an ability to laugh and enjoy life, their disappointments, slights, unreturned favours and jealousies didn't just wash away each evening. They accumulated and festered, buried deep inside. For some, it would get too much, and years of frustrations and anger would burst forth. Domestic violence was common. Men, women and young children, though mostly women and children, were at the receiving end of these furies. As Ni Vanuatu got older, these furies became less physical, replaced by torrents of abuse and self-righteousness that needed to be aired. That seemed to be happening now. Whoever was standing on the other side of the counter was making clear in detailed fashion all the ways, and it sounded like every way had been well and truly memorized, the world had wronged him. Taxi vans hadn't stopped. School children had hurried past and made him drop his shopping bag. Neighbours were unbearably loud. It hadn't rained properly for 3 months. There were too many Chinese. The post office had lost his letters. "Would you like to talk to my senior?" The young constable tried to interject, but George had scooted past too quickly, and the man complaining wasn't interested in stopping his tale of misfortune. Sitting outside George's office on a hard and uncomfortable seat, the ones you find in schools but bigger, was George's unofficial assistant. As a sergeant, George didn't qualify for a partner, and certainly not a junior partner, who would largely do all the unenviable tasks required of the police. Paperwork, interviewing suspects or witnesses, or attending to most other police business. That was normally the purview of those on the first and second floors. But somehow, Constable Jayline had attached herself to George when she was first stationed there, and no one seemed too perturbed. "Good morning." "Good morning." "Come on then," said George, motioning Jayline into his office. Thankfully, it was empty, so George sat down at his desk, and Jayline pulled over a chair and sat opposite him. Jayline had a pad and pen in her hands, ready to write. George looked at his watch and then switched on the portable radio. The reassuring pips sounded loud and clear, announcing the start of a new hour and, on this particular radio station, that the news report would immediately begin. George smiled with great satisfaction as the second hand on his own watch hit the numeral 12 at the exact moment as the last radio pip. As Jayline leant forward on her chair to listen carefully, George leaned back casually on his own chair, closed his eyes, and listened to the orchestral introduction to the news.